Hi, it's Jessie, and I ran out of time in my last video, so I am back. And the thing that I was trying to get to is having judges without laws. You know, it's dangerous to have judges without laws because then they use their position to make cases. And they make cases based on merit of character, right? And I know that Martin Luther King Jr., he said that he dreams of a day when people will be judged on the merit of their character and not the color of their skin. But on the merit of your character is very different from the slaying of your character in order to enable bad judgment, you know. Like, if a judge disqualifies your character, he can disqualify you as a witness. He can disqualify the verdict against you. He can do all kinds of things that basically make him immune from the law because of your character, you know? And a very bad judge will work through other people to strengthen his bad judgment. And these other people will protect the integrity of their institution by working through other people who are clueless of the agenda, of the law, of anything that's going on around them. And so the way that unjust nations do this is they run a smear campaign. And, you know, we hear of rumors ruining people's reputation, and we think petty people do that. But we need to know that powerful people do this when they have not laws, you know. We have to understand that when they do this, they are pleading a case to their witnesses, who they're appointing as judges, and they're filling their head with lies, you know. They're telling them that, oh, I don't know, I'm a scammer. They're telling them that I'm a lesbian. They're telling them that I'm a drunk, that I'm an alcoholic, that I had an abortion, that they're playing all these things that get under people's skin, that moves them to want to punish somebody. And they're telling them that I am this person. Now, be the witness for it because I'm all isolated and alone, you know. And without any witnesses, how can they make their case? You know, how can they take my life if they don't substantiate the case with the witnesses? And because I have no connections to me, you know, because I've noticed, you know, they've turned my family against me. They divided my house. They turned my family against me. They turned all the friends I had against me, you know. The teacher that I mentioned the other day, when I told her that my children's father had been to prison, she never talked to me again. This was several years ago. And she was a good friend. She's the godmother of my children, you know. After she learned that my children's father was in prison and that I had been a single mother all these years before we met, she never talked to me again. The guilt and the shame got to her. Do you understand? She couldn't hold her head up around me again. She couldn't look me in the eye again after bearing false testimony against me, knowing that she bared false testimony against me because she put her trust over here in the narrative that they were selling and had not realized that the narrative was false, that there was this completely different set of things that happened in my life. There was this completely different set of experiences that I had, that my children had. And it didn't match what they told her, and they put her in this position, and now the godmother of my children cannot look me in the eye anymore. And that's a damn shame because I loved her. You know, she was my friend. But because I understand what happened to her, I understand how they do things, right? I understand the way they get to people, the way they tell stories, the way they turn us against one another. And they're not looking for anything to be true. They're looking for someone to substantiate their lies. And I'm not being petty here. I'm not trying to attack anyone. I'm trying to save someone because someone is listening to this narrative that they're telling you, and they're proving their case based on your judgment after they've biased you against me with a folder full of lies. They're working you. They try to work me too. My son had an IEP back in kindergarten, and in his IEP papers, one thing that they wrote that he was a humble child. Um, my son is many things, but not humble. Um, he Well, he's more humble now, but in kindergarten he needed some help. At that age, all children are entitled and self-centered. Humble was not a word to describe him, but them putting humble in, they were trying to gain my favor. They were using flattery to pull the wool over my eyes. Flattery so that I would go along with what they're saying, because of course they see my son as humble. They have great judgment, but that is not a word that I would have used to describe my son at that stage. Later on in these IEP papers, you see why they try to gain favor over here, because later on my son, he discharges energy by making sounds. He's like, like that. It's not like a behavior disorder. you know it is like an autistic behavior. He cannot control it when it happens. It just like, he tenses up, he shakes, he makes this noise. And so in his later IEP, they would write that as a behavior disorder, that his sound effects are disrupting the classroom. Oh, when he's like, that's disrupting the classroom, really? you know but they control the narrative in this way. See, they gain your favor by flattering you first, and then they come back and they stab you in the back with some twisted crumbs of truth. Yes, he makes these sounds where he tenses up and but he's not doing it for attention. you know it's something that he's been doing all his life. He's not doing it for attention. He can't control it. What's wrong with you? How are you going to try and vilify him by his, how can you do that? But they did it because they were trying to make a case. And while this has a bit of truth to it, it's the context that matters, you see? And they're writing the context. Did I have disability benefits? Yes, I did. Does that make me a scammer? Well, let's see. I spent most of my adolescence in institutions. Most of my young adulthood in institutions, and I was disabled before 19 by doctors. Does that make me a scammer because I spent my life in institutions and doctors deem me disabled? Does that? Does it make me a scammer because I decided to go for my education? Does it? Having a disability doesn't mean that I don't have a mind. I like to learn. I like to learn all kinds of things. My son, he likes to learn all kinds of things. You'd be amazed at the things that he studies. Just random details everywhere about nature, about life, about laws. And he's only 13 years old, and he's the one sitting in class going, We like to learn. To learn is life. We don't have the connection with other people, And so we eat information, We thrive on information and building ourselves and making ourselves more, because the state that we're in tells us that we're less. And we make ourselves more by making ourselves smarter, not by eating other people, not by cutting down other people, but by learning how things work, not just taking in random garbage, but learning how things work and making observations about our world and judging our world. It's a bit different. Don't call me a scammer because I have a brain to think. Don't call me a scammer because I had disability, when my disability is gone, I tell them I don't want it back because of all the stuff y'all put me through. Y'all acted like my disability was a license to attack my children in this manner. And that's exactly what you did, not just with my son, with my other children. You run big game. You run big game all the time. You twist details. You try to make it look like my daughter had a behavior disorder. She's 17 now. She's an honor student. She's in all AP honors classes. She got a C in calculus, but, so did I. Calculus is like a foreign language, right? It's hard to learn, especially if you're working part-time while going to school full-time and working in theater. It's real hard to manage an A in calculus at that time. Don't count that against her, She's a good kid. But, I mean, she's always been a straight A student, like her whole life. And the principal, like the first year we were there, they gave her an award for most improved student. And I was like, what the crap is that about? And you don't know what things are about because they're making cases. They're making cases and you don't know what they're saying. They held back her grades. You understand? They didn't enter her grades into the system until after report cards came out, until after I get a failing report card. And I challenged the teacher, and she said she was just late on her grades. But that case was made for somebody else, that she was a failing student. And when her pediatrician made accusations against her that she was controlling her drinking at, 12 years old when she was still swimming in the kiddie pool, like, what the hell is wrong with you people? You're just making up stories all over the place, not just about me, about my children. And you're using my neighbors to substantiate things, and they don't know what they're involved in. They don't know it's murder. Do you know it's murder? Do you know who you're killing? Does the judge know who he's killing? Or is it just his job to strip away disability benefits and get away with it by ruining the reputation of those that he strips away? Is real dangerous to put judges in a position when they know not law. You can't make a judge out of anybody, okay? You make a judge out of anybody, your nation will fall because there will be mass injustice, people work in iniquity. What they did against me, that was them working iniquity against me. Do you understand? What the school did, that was working iniquity against me and my children. What my neighbors do, that's working iniquity against me and my children. And how are they able to do this? Because each one has appointed the next judge over me. They have appointed them as judge and made them witness. They do not care for my life. They do not care that they are telling lies. They have deemed me worthy of death. And so they don't mind telling you that I'm an alcoholic, though I'm not. They don't mind telling you that I'm a drug addict, though I am not. They don't mind telling you that I'm a lesbian, though I am not. They don't mind doing this because they've been puffed up with the authority of a judge, but not given the law. Not even told, like, the purpose of the law. They twist things up so much that the law is death. The judges are death. What do I mean? I mean, they're killing us. They're literally killing us. They are pulling our strings every which way, and they are killing us. And there comes a point in time, I know these people want to preserve their reputations. I know they want to be covered. I haven't called you out by name, Dr. Call Me Crazy. I haven't called you out by name yet, but I'm calling out what you're doing, because what you're doing is a standard practice. You didn't just do it to me. This is a well-oiled machine. You know how things work because you examined them. Back when they were, after Nazi Germany, they conducted this experiment called the Milgram experiment. They found out how to make good people do bad things, how to make neighbors turn against each other. And when you think that they were looking at how did they do that to understand how bad things happen so that you can avoid them, you're wrong, because they took those things and they implemented them into their policies and into their structure of government, into their judges, into the law. And so the law doesn't matter because we can make people do things what we want to do. It's ridiculous. It is utterly ridiculous. I tell you, I love the Torah. I'm not a Jew. That's a whole nother nation, you know. I can't fight these people with Torah, but I'm an American and I can fight them with my Constitution. And though I don't have a law degree, I seem to remember. I seem to remember having certain unalienable rights. I seem to remember having rights to due process. I seem to remember these amendments that were passed, these little laws that were added on that said, if you're going to arrest me in pursuit of my life, then you have to give me a warning, a Miranda warning. If you're going to take my life from me, you have to plead your case in front of a judge, and I get the right to face my accusers. The accused has rights, but with these fools, you don't have any rights because they never put you under arrest. They never put you in front of a real judge. They just run game all day long, and I've had enough. I have paid enough. My children have paid enough. I cannot live in a world like this, and it must change. So I will lift up my God if I stand by myself. I will lift up my God, and I will lift up the law. And I will say, you are not the law of the land, though you've managed to put yourself into a position of power. You do not run things. This is not your country. We have a constitution. This is a democracy. You don't get to be a dictator and just erase the laws. You have to follow the laws the same way I got to follow the laws, right? You can't live this way. And so I'm going to come on here and I'm going to speak. And I'm not just going to plead my case with the Constitution. I'm going to plead it with the law. I'm going to plead it with Torah. Because I want you to know this isn't just against the nation. This is a crime against God. This is a crime against God. And I have a duty to warn that your judgment will come. Your judgment will come like a thief in the night. Your judgment will come upon you because you get what you give, what you've done. You've stolen my life in the dark. You've come like a thief in the night. You have run game and established standards and schemed and plotted and twisted. But I'm still here, you know. What you tried to do to me, what the way you've hedged me in. All of that comes back to you. Why? Because you're judged by the order that you keep. You are judged by the order that you keep. You have no laws. You run this lawless game. You have no protection of law. You downplay the constitution of a nation to lift up this manipulative game. You have no protection of the Constitution. You get no right to a fair trial. Now, I understand y'all protect your identities by going after anyone who exposes you and saying it's slander, you know, that you shut them up in these ways. And for that reason, I have not identified you by name. I will speak until the day I die of all these atrocities that you have committed, you know, all these atrocities, all these lawless behaviors. The downfall of a nation, I put it on your head because lawlessness always brings judgment without limits. And what's the judgment of God look like? Take a look out in the world. Floods, earthquakes, you know, storms, you know, famine, plagues. You want to avoid the judgment of God? Return to your laws, you know. We don't have the advice in our Constitution of how to make things right after you've gone so wrong. But thankfully the Jews have provided us with a blueprint of how to get back on task when you've been so wrong. So I'm gonna lead you back to task. But these people over there, I have no forgiveness for them. I have no mercy for them. You know, what they did was wrong. Maybe my neighbors around me, I have some mercy for them because they really didn't know what they were getting themselves into. But these trusted professionals, these esteemed judges, I have nothing for you. Nothing. I have the responsibility of the fall of the nation that I will place upon your head every day because that's where it belongs. You have destroyed the nation with your ways. We have a constitution. Get back to it, for anybody else who doesn't want to follow suit with them, And I hope that you understand. I hope that you understand what I'm saying. I'm not crying victim to cry victim. I'm telling you what they did, how they worked iniquity, how they get in there, how they defame someone's character in order to get you to tell lies on them. And you don't even know what you're doing. I really hope that you understand that I'm not trying to kill you. I'm trying to help you to avoid what these people have done. If they had stopped at just harassing me, I would have understood, because I have a covenant to suffer for God, my very own covenant, So I tell you, I don't believe in conversions. When God loves you, he'll cut a covenant directly with you, He'll call you Israel for himself, They didn't stop at me, though. They went for my children. And when you go for my children, you've gone too far. You don't mess with the mama's babies. And you certainly don't mock me and tell me, oh, go take care of my babies, while you're defaming my character and trying to make it look like I'm a nutcase. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't do that nonsense. It just shows who you are and why you can't have life. Because you're not sorry. If you were sorry, you will put it out there and be sorry, instead of constantly trying to whitewash and kill. Whitewash and sacrifice your victim to cover you, It's not right. And it needs to change. It needs to stop. We need like a national overhaul for you leaders who are listening. You want to know how to lead the country into greatness, make America great again? Start talking about the iniquity that we work within it. And stop acting like this is the way that you preserve your power, because it's not. Did it work for Hitler? Did it work for Stalin? It didn't. It won't work for you. You want to preserve your power? Knock them out, because they undermine and destabilize and tell lies about anyone they can't control. And the only way to take them out is to open people's eyes about them and stop lifting them up as trusted professionals. Stop being idiots. Stop. You can't run this game on a nation and think that you're building something good. You're not. You cannot use these ways for good. These ways only lead one way. They only breed one thing. All the mass shootings, that's your fruit, All the perversion in society, that's your fruit. Don't go that way. You want a world that you can trust, a world that you can live in. Stop allowing people to scheme. Stop. And when I say stop allowing people to scheme, I'm not just talking about the people down here on the ground. I'm talking about the people you've seated in high places, that you have a responsibility to be honorable, to be law-abiding, to be an example for people to follow, to teach people how to do the right thing, not try to entrap them and make cases against them, but to have an understanding that, we have been misled, and at some point we have to be the leaders that bring people back to where they are supposed to be. And we can't put up with this nonsense while we're trying to be these righteous leaders, because, a house can't serve two masters, and you can't have all this division. You have to cut out what's killing you. You have to stomp it out. They got to abandon their positions. They got to change. The only way to survive is be sorry and change. Turn away from that stuff. Turn over to this stuff where you are a good example, and you're not just saying we teach kids to pride, integrity, honesty, where you have these slogans where at my school we have pride. But then you're a hypocrite, and you teach them to spy on each other. You teach them to attack each other. You play people off people to make a case for somebody else. You cannot teach these things if you cannot demonstrate these things. Do you understand what I'm saying? Honestly, when you put these people in office and they fight you, you can't fight them because they prove a case with things that you know nothing about because their cases has no basis in reality. They send me notifications about my kid's lunch balance. My kid doesn't eat school lunches. None of my kids do. I pack their lunches. I don't know what they're saying. They have the nurse regularly contacting me. They have my daughter in the nurse's office every day. I don't know. When I was in school, I remember only being sent to the nurse for something serious. I remember the nurse being busy because she's got a whole school full of people, and yet somehow they have the time to see my daughter every day and send me notes every day. And what are they establishing with this? Because they don't just send my kid to the nurses. They have the social worker come and visit my kid. They tell me my kid's got anxiety. And yeah, my kid's got anxiety because I've told my kid that you people are tricky. And I told her to watch what she says about you. And so while you're trying to manipulate her, understand that she's already got the understanding that you're tricky. Of course she's got anxiety being in school. She doesn't have anxiety being at home. They gaslight. They change the narrative. They're so clever. You can't be like that. You cannot be like that. It doesn't work. You don't come and try to gather information with me. You don't come and try to make it look like there's a relationship that we don't have by having the nurse contact me every day. You don't write these stories that have no basis in reality. When you're making things up, when you're controlling all the variables, you don't get to do this. You don't get to have credibility when you do this. You have to stop. You have to change. I've had enough. I'm sure the nation's had enough. That's all I'm going to say. My heart can't take no more. I can't take no more. I really can't. And so, I'm here speaking. Praying things will change. Nothing changes in silence, right? Nothing changes in silence. In silence, they think they have permission. They do a lot of things with silence when silence is supposed to be the thing that brings your redemption. Silence is supposed to be the thing that brings you forgiveness, rest, and repentance. Silence is the thing that helps you get through your sin without dying, They use your silence against you. They tell your story for you. And they don't tell it in truth, I'm done. I have nowhere to look for help other than to God, right? But God says, before He can judge, we have a duty to warn. So I'm done. I'm fulfilling my duty to warn, right? Doctor called me crazy. You said I was a prophet. I said, no, I'm not. I'm not a prophet. But I understand the prophet's task. Duty to warn. Your judgment will come if you don't change. Your judgment will come if you don't change. How do I know? Because every time they came, you Bamas was doing the same thing that you're doing now. Every time in the past God sent a prophet to rebuke the nation, you were doing the same thing that you are now. Working iniquity and whitewashing your crimes. Leading people astray, turning away from the law, being manipulative, making them do what you say, giving them the power to do what they want to do as long as they lift you up. It's not right. Duty to warn, stop or you'll die. Not by my hand, by God's. The nation will fall. I'm just saying, Definitely not a prophet because I don't know, I don't have that zeal that they have anymore. But then again, I've been beaten down by these fools for like 20 years. And it's like I'm tired. I don't even want to warn you. I don't want to talk to you. I just want to live with my doors shut because you can't trust the world around me. But you can't live that way, and especially if you have kids. So push forward, warn these trolls, put my faith and my hope in God, and try to press forward and at least speak on what's the right thing to do, on what's the right way to be, What's the path forward out of this nonsense, you know? I hope you get that. I really do. All right, y'all have a good day. God bless.